this is the way. Today, everyone, I will be reviewing Season 3 of The Mandalorian. This is a full spoiler review of the season, so if you've not seen it, check it out and then come back and watch this video. Or if you don't care about The Mandalorian Season 3, watch this anyway. But this will be full spoilers. Just take that into advance. So anyway, Season 2 of The Mandalorian came out over 2 years ago. There was a little break in the middle for Book of Boba Fett, which, for a little preface, I enjoyed Book of Boba Fett, but I thought it was pretty flawed, and in a way, it definitely was the first step in hindering Mando Season 3. But I'll get more into that into the review, starting with the actual review, starting now. So, The Mandalorian Season 3. I'm just going to put Baby Yoda down here. So, on to the negatives. First off, this is, I'd say, by far the most disjointed season of the show. I'd say Season 1 and 2 were both, honestly, perfect 10 out of 10s in my book. They were so exciting and thrilling and entertaining and just classic Star Wars content. They were good standalone, and whenever they had a cameo or tie-in, I'd say they worked very, very well. And Season 2 set up the future of the show for such an interesting future where it's like, okay, well, Din Djarin, he's lost Grogu. He's been banished from his clan. He's shown his face. He now has the Darksaber. That's all so interesting and completely takes the character in this new direction where he has to figure this out, maybe setting him up in a reluctant leader of Mandalore stance. That's extremely interesting. It's Big Dis Djarin. He has to learn how to live without Baby Yoda. And it's like, and then Book of Boba Fett immediately, it's like, okay, well, he's kind of trying to get back together with his clan, and then he also gets Baby Yoda back together. So that's not a great start right off the bat. Some of it's understandable, some of it's iffy, but right off the bat, the big emotion of the end of Season 2, gone with Book of Boba Fett. And they, resolved it outside of Mando Season 3. That's kind of weird. But even then, right now, I'm not talking about Mando Season 3, about how Boba Fett set up. Mando Season 3, my big issue is it completely goes back on the Mandalorian's character development. I mean, everything cool that I was setting up, him being away from Baby Yoda, oh, they're back together again. Oh, he has the Darksaber. Oh, he just gives it back to Bo-Katan. Oh, he's shown his face and gotten banished from his clan. Oh, he just has to go take a bath in the water and he's forgiven. He's basically just back to being a cultist. And it's like, everything interesting you set up for him, you washed away. And now in this season, for a good chunk of the middle, he's kind of a side character to Bo-Katan. And Bo-Katan's been a character that I've liked all throughout Star Wars media, and she's still relatively interesting in the season. She's very, very solid. But what I loved about this show was the dynamic between Din and Grogu. And I thought Season 3 would be interesting. You take Grogu out of the mix, and you put Din on this epic, awesome journey as a reluctant leader. That's what I felt like they were setting up. And that's just gone now. And now it's a story about Boba Fett as Bo-Katan as this eager leader, and Din's just helping them out. And that does lead to some good moments, like the whole thing about how your song is not yet written. But it's iffy. And I understand why they didn't want to get rid of Grogu, who makes so much money. But from a story perspective, that just wasn't a good call, in my opinion. Then this season also, it's just very unbalanced. Episode 1 is all set up. Episode 2 is entertaining. Episode 3... it takes a big detour for this Moff Gideon Coruscant storyline that doesn't even really tie into the main story for the most part at all. Episode 4, weird side quest with the birds with a little bit of Baby Yoda backstory. Episode 5, tied into the plot a bit, tied back into the pirates, that was cool. Episode 6, Mando and Bo-Katan help Jack Black and Lizzo fight Doc Brown's army of battle droids. And then he just gives the Darksaber back to Bo-Katan. Episode 7 and 8, I'd say better balance. I like that Episode 7 and 8 are a lot more okay, we're not going to tie into other Star Wars media except for a little Thrawn reference. We're going to be very self-contained, very set in stone, very much concluding this season's story. And I really appreciated that. But this season was so disjointed. I mean, we didn't even get Moff Gideon until Episode 7. And sure, you could say the same with Season 1, but he wasn't an overarching villain until the end of Season 1. And now he's this big overarching villain. We didn't get him until the end of the season. And there was basically very little. It felt so disjointed and so messy. I would still say there's a lot of good this season. I loved seeing Coruscant and Mandalore. I thought the action, especially the action in the finale, was phenomenal. So a really solid score by Joseph Shirley, although Ludwig Göransson is missed. The performances were solid. The cameos, well, a little bit iffy. They were fun. I loved seeing Zeb. But this season, it's just such a big step back. It loses a lot of the heart of Mando and Grogu, the big developing focal point. Their charm is gone, and it's this story about Bo-Katan having to step up, and then the armor, she's a bland character, and the whole two clans of Mandalorians getting together. So there should have been a bit more friction, I think, other than just a chess match. And I know there's been a lot of complaining so far, so I'll get back to the positive soon. But my issue, some people's issue is like, oh, it's tying too much into other Star Wars lore. That wasn't a big issue for me. It's just like, it felt like it was trying too much to be a Bo-Katan show when we should have gone all Bo-Katan or all Din Djarin instead of like, oh, here's a bit of Bo-Katan, here's a bit of Din, but let's keep Baby Yoda for the toys. It's iffy. Now, there is still plenty of pros here. I say when the show is focusing on Din and Grogu, even though I am a little upset they brought Grogu back, it's still really, really good. Episode 2, their journey on Mandalore, is really interesting. They have a great dynamic. I love Episode 7, that scene with him in IG-11. The finale, a lot of people have complaints. I'd honestly say the whole finale was genuinely so good. Sure, Moff Gideon's death was kind of goofy, but I thought there was a lot of great things there. The destruction of the Darksaber shows that Bo-Katan doesn't need that anymore to rule her people. She's earned their loyalty and trust. It's so satisfying to see the Mandalorians reclaim Mandalore. Din Djarin, I love him kind of taking on Grogu officially as his son. And then he's settling down in order to kind of take more New Republic quests. It's very interesting. I like Carson Teva. I love the New Republic in this, and I think it's cool setting up to see, like, oh, they're making plenty of mistakes too. Their complacency is why eventually the Empire, the First Order, rose up again. The Shadow Council's cool. I love the Praetorian Guards. Paz Vizsla's death is really cool. Kelleran Beck being the one who saved Grogu is great. There's a lot of good to this season. I'd say there's a lot of great parts. There's a lot of iffy parts, and overall, it comes up to a solid but could have been better whole. I just hope for Season 4, they get way back into the focus of Din and Grogu going on these quests. They need to set up an interesting new story arc for Din. And then Bo-Katan, I'd say, needs to be a much more occasional side character. Seeing the Mythosaur was cool. They didn't really do anything with it this season. My thoughts on the Mandalorian Season 3 overall, I know this has been a big ramble video. I'd say it was unfocused. They went back on Din's character development. The writing felt a bit more stiff. But when the show was focusing on the action and the cool planets and the cool creatures and visuals and music and just the sweet, wholesome moments between Din and Grogu, I'd still say it worked in that regard. It was still a solid, fun season of Star Wars television, and definitely one that I enjoyed throughout. It is just one that did not nearly hit the heights it could have. But I thought it all culminated in a very solid, fun conclusion that helps me look back on the season a little more fondly. So Mandalorian Season 3, a bit iffy, but still a very fun season of Star Wars television. I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. I just hope Season 4 is better. I hope you guys like the review. Coming soon, Peter Pan and Wendy, Star Wars Visions Volume 2, and my most anticipated movie of the year, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I hope you guys like the video, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.